This is the Nightshade Cult, a podcast macabre.
We bid you welcome. Enter freely and of your own will.
I'm Nick Grimm,
And I'm David Graves.
and we will be your horror hosts for this dissection of Alex Kurtzman's 2017 action horror thriller, The Mummy.
Good evening. So this one was really stretching it to call it a horror movie.
You know, it's got horror segments in it. You know what I mean?
It has spooky moments here and there.
Well, it's like 2 or 3 different movies jammed together, and one of them is a horror movie.
Yeah, it kind of felt like it had like shades of Marvel movies where it's just adds entire segments that are just for future tie-ins, like the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing.
Yeah.
The whole, it's just, it was supposed to be part of the Dark Universe.
The Dark Universe.
And it just never happened.
Welcome to a new world of gods and monsters. This is the movie that's supposed to launch the shared universe.
Why didn't they launch it?
Of the what? Because this movie, despite the fact this movie did good business overseas, it totally bombed in the States. And
it made a lot of money. It made it was made for $195 and it made $410. So that's not bad.
It was Tom Cruise's biggest international opening to date when it came out.
Wow.
But it bombed in America. Critically, they took a dump on it, and the whole Dark Universe got scuttled. Which they went all out announcing it. They did a big press release about the Dark Universe and the next 2 movies, which were going to be Bride of Frankenstein, directed by Bill Condon, who has a lot of connections to the Bride of Frankenstein because he did the biopic Gods and Monsters about James Whale, who directed Bride of Frankenstein. And that they had Javier Bardem cast as the monster and Angelina Jolie as the bride.
Dang,
and they had
big names.
Yeah, and they had Johnny Depp cast to play the Invisible Man in an Invisible Man movie. And then more irons in the fire, like Dwayne Johnson was supposed to be the Wolfman, and like they had
It seems insane that they would do all that work to get that organized and then scuttle it all. Especially
because it's not like the movie didn't make money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it did all right.
And they, from my limited research, it's kind of, there's a lot of conflicting reports, but there was a lot of talk that Luke Evans was going to stay on as Dracula.
Nice.
And Charles Dance was sort of like the big bad of this universe with Russell Crowe as sort of their Nick Fury. Yeah. And like they had this all sort of set up, and then this movie bombed, and they just were like, scrap it. We were just starting from ground zero again with the monsters. And,
are they going to do a new one? Is that a thing?
We'll wait till the news segment. I've got a little something about
nice. That. Yeah, so I was really curious about this movie because I didn't see it, and I will say I've never seen any Mummy movies, not even the Brendan Fraser classic that everyone seems to love.
Yeah, at least that first one everyone likes a lot.
Yeah, I've never seen any of them, just because this never really hit me as something that interests me.
Yeah.
But I was really curious with the idea of this dark universe, and then if they got Tom Cruise, such a big name, one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and then like how could this fail? And then it did okay money wise, but the ratings weren't very good. So I definitely had to check it out. And I did a little reading around online and trying to figure out how did this whole fiasco happen. It just seemed like the advertising was weird, and they really focused on weird things, like in unimportant details. They gave people a bunch of false expectations. Like honestly, I thought the Mummy was the hero of this movie, not Tom Cruise.
I've got nothing but good things to say about Sofia Boutella in this movie.
Yeah, like that was the protagonist, and his character was a heel.
That is sort of like ultimately that. The sort of the swashbuckling Tomb Raider of the Indiana Jones type character.
Yeah, that's really what this was.
That doesn't work in the modern era where we're conscious that you're plundering the heritage of these countries, and like it just doesn't work anymore. It doesn't feel cool. It feels bad.
Well, and I'll say, like, especially when I was watching the opening, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I'm watching the opening, and these guys are soldiers, and they're thieves, and they're taking advantage of their situation while deployed in the Middle East. And I was a soldier, and I was deployed in the Middle East, and I'd have shot these guys.
Yeah, I was
anybody maybe not shot them, but I definitely was not cool with that depiction, because it's like nobody did that. People weren't there to be thieves. The CIA were there. They were the thieves. We saw them. Like, they were in the black SUVs. They were the guys not in uniform.
Yeah. So these guys, and I guess this is. We'll get more. Well, let's save that for the storytelling stuff, because I knew right away, like when their advanced reconnaissance army, like he's a sergeant, and I forget
like, we're gonna send an E5 and an E4 to go and do this super important thing, just the two of them. That'll never happen. Maybe if they were special forces, or like Rangers or something, but these are just like jokes.
Yeah, but they're way off mission, right?
Oh,
because they're like,
and
they're
then
out there
the
tomb
full
raiding.
bird colonel is like, "You're such a rascal, you." No, it would have been a first sergeant or a sergeant major breathing fire on them.
Yeah.
It would, it was just.
I knew you'd have something to say about
the military. They needed to hire a military consultant. Hire David Goggins or some famous, like Jocko, some famous military guy.
Well, didn't it seemed like their uniforms and like the planes, everything seemed old, which generally means they didn't have like
They didn't have military participation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're using stuff that's generally, you use stuff that's owned by private collectors when you don't have the military participation, and things look a little screwy. Like the uniforms did not look like 2017 uniforms.
They did not look right. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, we'll get into this.
Yeah.
I do want to, mention the one accolade that this movie did get. It won an award.
A Razzie?
It got 8 nominations at the 38th Annual Golden Raspberry Awards, also known as the Razzies. And Tom Cruise did indeed win the Razzie for Worst Actor.
Ooh, I don't know if that's fair,
but
I'd have to
nods.
look who else was nominated.
It was all big name movies. It was basically, it seems like that's the Razzies thing.
Yeah.
They just take the piss out of all the big names. And this time he probably was the worst one.
Okay. Yeah. Fair. Harsh, but fair.
All right. So let's go ahead and roll and get into our dark tidings. I got a 15.
I got a 9. You go first.
All right. So I got, I was scrolling along and, the algorithm knows you and it knows what you're into and what you've been up to. It's kind of like techno Santa Claus or something. I guess it is.
He knows when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake.
Yeah, totally. Here's a notification from when you were asleep. I was like, the fuck? Anyway, I got an advertisement for a concert, a festival. And I thought to myself, okay, this is interesting. It's taking place in California in May. It's called the Cruel World Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I kind of want to go to that.
It looks pretty awesome.
It's a one-day thing. So you could fly out Friday, you could stay and then fly home Sunday. No big deal. Just take one day off work. And there are some big notables here. The headliner is Duran Duran, but I mean they're the top listing. But you've also got Ministry, who's playing With Sympathy and Twitch songs. So it's from their 2 like synth pop 80s industrial albums.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and they've got Gary Newman doing all stuff from The Pleasure Principle. So more of his old stuff. You have the supergroup from AFI, from Davey Havok, Dream Car.
Where it's No Doubt plus Davey Havok.
Yeah, and you've got The Mission UK, Blondie, Simple Minds, Placebo, Adamant, and then Lowell Tolhurst and Budgie.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, I want to go to this festival.
That does. I think is this the second or third Cruel World festival?
Yeah, I'm not sure. And Pasadena's super nice. Like I went there not last summer, the one before, to play disc golf at the first disc golf course ever.
Okay.
And yeah, it's super nice little town.
Yeah. What do these tickets cost?
It was like $200 or so for a pass, and then there's like a $300 slightly better one, and then like a $500 VIP or whatever.
Where you can sit in the air conditioned tent and stuff.
All that stuff. May it won't be too hot. It won't be too bad. But
I don't know. That does seem like a pretty cool festival.
Yeah, we should see about if that's in the cards.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all I got. What do you have?
I've got a bunch of stories, and we'll try and get through them quick. The first up, I just alluded to a little bit ago, is we've got some Wolfman activity happening. Movie has been in development. A new Wolfman has been in development since back, at the time of this movie that we're talking about.
For the new Dark Universe?
Yeah. No, actually, this is coming from the director, Leigh Whannell, who directed 2020's Invisible Man remake, which was my movie of the year in 2020.
Wow.
It is just a superb, great suspense horror thriller.
I never saw that one.
Very big trigger warning for domestic violence, but a very good movie. If you're okay with troubling material, it's definitely worth watching. And so I think this is a great choice to direct a smaller, scarier Wolfman movie. And Christopher Abbott, who I'm not familiar with, he's a young actor. He's in that movie Poor Things that's coming out next week. He's going to be playing the lead in it. It had been Ryan Gosling that had been attached to it most recently, and he had to drop out for whatever reason, although he's staying on as an executive producer on this. And they have a projected release date of October 25, 2024.
Wow.
So that means this movie is actively being produced right now.
Yeah.
Like it is, they're off and rolling. So I'm very stoked about that because I love that Invisible Man movie.
Okay. And I mean, I'm always up for a Wolfman movie.
Yeah, we need more better Wolfman movies.
Yeah, there's just not enough good ones.
And then my other two, The Death of Bunny Monroe, which is a book by Nick Cave, is being adapted by Matt Smith, of Doctor Who and House of the Dragon fame.
All right.
It's going to be done as a TV a 6-part miniseries, written by Pete Jackson, not Peter Jackson, and directed by Isabella Eckloff. And from Clerkenwell Films, who did the show Misfits for BBC, which I really love that show. So I'm not really familiar with the book. I think our pal Ed recommended it to me the other day, I feel like, and I put it on my wish list, but I haven't got around to it. But I probably will wait now until after the adaptation comes out and watch that without expectation, and then go back to the book.
You don't do the book first and then
that's the way to ruin a show or movie for yourself. Is to read the book first and go in there with a better version in your head than the one you end up seeing.
Okay.
I hate doing that.
That makes sense.
And then my final one, and I'll be real quick about it, is Sepultura announced they're calling it quits.
I saw that. I wasn't sure. If that was going to be notable because, as Max is wont to say, no Cavalera, no Sepultura.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not entirely in that camp, but I'm more. I think Derek Green was a good vocalist for Sepultura,
for sure.
But when Igor left, I sort of stopped following Sepultura.
Yeah.
And especially now that Max and Igor are re-recording the old Sepultura albums, it feels like we have competing Sepulturas and one of them admitted defeat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, realistically, if you're like, okay, if it's playing on the same night, you have Sepultura and Cavalera Conspiracy, and they're both going to play featuring songs from Roots, King Chaos AD, and whatnot, or you're like, what are you going to do? I'm going to go to Cavalera Conspiracy.
Yeah.
You go see Max.
And it's really because they put out this whole press release It's about their 40th anniversary and blah blah blah, and they are referring to this as euthanasia and the right to a dignified death. And I just like, man, I didn't think Sepultura was doing that bad. They had to be put down like that. It's a weird way to refer to yourself. But yeah, I've got a lot of love for Sepultura, and so I'm sad to see them call it quits.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the hope would be is they call it quits. Cavalera Conspiracy is doing their thing. Mm-hmm. They get in touch with Andreas Kisser, and they're like, let's just do this right.
Yeah.
And he goes and joins with the Cavalera brothers, and they do a Sepultura classic lineup reunion. Like, no shade on the other guys, but a classic era lineup would be fine. Would be great.
I think there's a lot of bad blood between the two camps. It does not seem like either side is close to making up with the other one.
Yeah, I suppose if you went off and made a Nightshade Cult podcast with some knockoff nerd, and then later on we're like, hey, you want to come? I'd be like, hell no. You can't replace me and then call me.
Yeah, it's like, maybe if you'd called it something different, but you kept calling it Nightshade Cult.
Exactly. Yeah, so I could see why they wouldn't be up for that.
Yeah. It's a bummer, but yeah, so yeah, obrigado Sepultura for all the memories.
Yeah, it's been a good one. All right, so let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with this dissection of the Mummy.
An army sergeant with a side hustle as a tomb raider gets drawn into the dark universe when he uncovers an ancient Egyptian tomb in modern-day Iraq and winds up cursed by the mummy inside.
Yes, this movie has a fairly straightforward plot until you start adding in like vestigial limbs and characters.
Mm-hmm, yeah. I call it too many cooks in the kitchen.
Okay.
So basically, let me run you through the pedigree of this screenplay. Oh. First, we've got our three story by credits. John Spates was the first writer on this, followed by Alex Kurtzman, who ends up being the director. At this point, he was just a producer when he started writing on it. Jenny Lamette comes in and does another draft on the screenplay. She's the one that gender flips the mummy and kind of actually gets to what ends up being the core of this version of the story.
Okay.
But then Tom Cruise gets attached to the movie to star. He brings in his own people to rewrite the script again. And so we have David Cope, Christopher McQuarrie, the Mission Impossible director, who's like Tom Cruise's his main collaborative partner, and Dylan Kurtzman. And they completely rework the film to downplay the mummy and upplay Tom Cruise. Basically, make Tom Cruise into the mummy. Like, make him the title character of the movie. Which, spoiler, he's the mummy by the end of the movie. He becomes the mummy. Which I don't think that was ever the intent of this story. But when Tom Cruise is in the Tom Cruise business, and anything he does is going to be a Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah, it was really interesting how it seemed kind of like, I don't know, the promise of the premise. I wanted a good mummy movie that was spooky and dark and whatnot. And then we've got this kind of like wisecracking asshole. And it's all about him being like just doing tomfoolery and being a younger, cooler, like a Han Solo meets Indiana Jones kind of a guy. Like, he's just terrible.
Yeah, there's a point where Russell Crowe says something to him about Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll says something to Nick Morton about him being a younger man. And I was like, wait a minute, these guys are the same age. And so I looked it up, and like they're 3 years apart. Like, Russell Crowe is not dad age to Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
They're like brother age, it's Tom Cruise is too old to play this guy that he's playing in this movie.
Yeah, the guy that they had play his slapstick sidekick, that guy's the right age.
Yeah, totally. Russell Crowe could dad Jake Johnson. That would be appropriate.
Yeah.
He can't dad Tom Cruise.
I don't know how this director, how Kurtzman got put in as the director with a movie this big with this many big names attached.
Yeah.
But this being his second movie as a director, he's mostly a TV guy. Like he almost exclusively is credited as an executive producer on most things. He's just done so many mediocre TV shows that I don't like or I've seen and thought it was meh.
Yeah.
Just like I'm just scrolling through his IMDb and I'm just like, this is stuff that got made. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of Star Trek.
And he's big on Star Trek.
And the worst of the Star Trek series, Discovery. Like, I've seen all the Star Treks, and that's the worst one.
I didn't hate Discovery, although I didn't stay with it.
If you're ranking them, it's got to be at the bottom. Like, which one is worse than that one?
Jeez, I don't know.
I mean,
I defer to your Trekkie knowledge.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to bag on Kurtzman completely. I'm just saying he wasn't up to the task of mastering Tom Cruise's team, who made this a Tom Cruise flick and ruined it.
So the word on the street is Tom Cruise was the actual director of the movie. That's how people felt about it. He basically stole the project away from Kurtzman, and Kurtzman was there to serve it. Was there to service Tom Cruise's vision.
That's so lame.
And I had a quote from him somewhere where basically it was several years on after the wound wasn't stinging quite as much. Oh yeah, here it is. He said, "The Mummy wasn't what I wanted it to be. I'm no longer involved in that and have no idea what's going on with it. I look back on it now, and what felt painful at the time ended up being an incredible blessing for me."
So he made money.
Yeah, he made money, and he wasn't on the sinking ship of the Dark Universe as it went down, I think is kind of why it was a blessing for him, because he was going to be an integral part of the Dark Universe as a producer. So Tom Cruise completely hijacked this movie away from the director and everyone else. Yeah,
and he kind of ran it into the ground, because there are a million guys in Hollywood that could have played this role and not had and let the Mummy be the main role.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the one. He's too big to do a side part.
Yeah. And so that's why I say it has too many cooks. Essentially, you have three visions going on. I've listened to some interviews with Kurtzman, and he came on board to do a modern remake of The Mummy. That's what he wanted to do. He was deep into the Universal horror, and he wanted to do his version of The Mummy. Tom Cruise wants to do a Tom Cruise movie, and Universal wants to launch a shared universe franchise.
They want their own Avengers.
They want their monster Avengers. They've been trying to get it going, and they think this is the one. This is the horse that's going to get them there. And so you've got these three competing interests, and it's like each one of them takes turns driving at different parts. Because there are parts where like it turns into a real horror movie, especially the stuff with the Mummy when she first kind of gets out and she's sort of collecting her ghouls and like sucking souls, and like the movie gets proper dark for like 20 minutes, and then it goes into like a big like car chase in the woods and turns back into a Mission Impossible movie.
Yep.
And then Russell Crowe comes in and does like his like kind of dollar store Nick Fury thing. Yeah. And it's like, and now we're off into a third different movie, and it just always is snaking around.
Yeah, it was really weird how incoherent it felt by the end of it. It was like almost 2 hours long of just kind of meandering stuff. the Nick Fury, the Jekyll, all of that could have been cut because it wasn't salient to the Mummy. And most of the annoying Tomb Raider stuff could have been cut. It wasn't needed. It wasn't salient. It was just kind of, I don't know. There was a lot of things that could have been cut, but there were a few things that this movie did all right.
Like, weirdly, I mean, this is probably clear already. We think this is a bad movie. Even though I think this is a bad movie, I wasn't unentertained by it.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting toward. Like, so as far as the storytelling and writing and directing and all of that, like the fast pace of the plot, it never lingered too long to make you completely bored. Sometimes the humor really hit, like had me actually chuckling.
Yeah.
I didn't always love it, but sometimes it was good. Especially the sidekick. He was pretty funny.
Jake Johnson. I love Jake Johnson. Yeah.
And I thought that it was cool, like until the end when I saw that they were just passing the torch from Amunet to Jackass. I was like, I'm really down with this Mummy. She's fucking badass.
The Mummy is badass, and that's I'm gonna. You root for her, right?
Yeah, she's the hero. I was just
when the Prodigium people are like pumping her full of mercury, and like, you know, she's fighting for her life or whatever. You're like, come on, you can do it. You can get free.
Yeah.
Kill all these
Kill
people.
these motherfuckers.
Kill these monster hunters. I hate these guys.
Yeah, you have the army guy all ensorcelled, get him to free you, and then you kill them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was rooting for Amunet the whole time.
Yeah.
She was great. I thought the performance, we'll get to the performances later, but just the writing of it.
Yeah.
This is a strong female protagonist of the movie. She's not anybody's damsel. She's the monster in the closet. She's the slasher.
I would love to have seen this movie pre Tom Cruise. Like if they had made it with that third draft of the script, these versions of the characters, and someone less grandstandy playing the Nick Morton character, this could have been a really great movie.
Yeah, we should have had John Cena.
You know what? At least John Cena would listen to direction.
Yeah, he wouldn't try to take the whole project over.
He wouldn't, because he doesn't have that, like, he has the appropriate ego for a man of his talent.
He's
ready to be taught.
He's accustomed to being unseen.
Oh, don't make me spit on my beer. Yeah. On into the visuals?
Yeah. I mean, the movie looked pretty cool. Like
the movie looks good.
It looked better than it was.
Cinematographer Ben Saracen, he's good. I like the way the movie is. The way the movie is lit. The desert sequences they shot in Namibia look great. They look epic and like sort of Lawrence of Arabia style. The horror stuff, like this movie, like at times, like the stuff around the abbey and the tombs and everything, it's more proper gothic horror than Dracula was.
Yeah, I really liked all of that tomb stuff with the Templars and all of that. I like that conspiracy stuff. And like they have like the ghoulish knights and stuff and the chainmail glittering in the moonlight. It was like pretty cool looking.
That stuff all looked very cool. Like I kept thinking, this movie looks good. Like it looks really good.
Yeah, and the camera work is great. Like you were talking about with the desert, how they framed the shots. When they framed the shots in those various like catacomb things, a lot of them were from like way up above, and then you get like shots from below and the side. Like it was really dynamic camera work. And then of course in the action scenes, it was Mission Impossible. You know, they're running and following him as he's like in a crashing plane and everything. So I mean, it looked really cool. The lighting was really dark and moody, but not so dark that you couldn't see it.
Yeah, and that is a fine line that people mess up a lot. Yeah, totally.
And they used interesting color palettes for different locations. When they were in the Middle East and all of that, they were using like sepia and browns as kind of filters. But then when they got to England, it was all filtered in like blues and greens.
Yeah.
And so you really felt like you had changed worlds. Like it was I think that it was visually striking. It was a very, very good-looking movie.
Sometimes it's really a struggle when to know when to credit the cinematographer or the director, and then other times I feel like you just know this guy's good with the camera. And especially, and we talked about this, I think, with the last movie, when you have an inexperienced director and an experienced cinematographer, the cinematographer kind of becomes like director's helper.
Yeah, they kind of call the shots with all the camera crews. They're like, you do this and you do that.
Yeah,
and
like, what if I put the camera right here? You think that'll work? And the director's like, ooh, that is a good place to put the camera.
Great idea.
I also wanted to put it there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think despite some of the directing shortcomings and the plot holes and whatnot, the movie, it moved right along and it looked great the whole time. Like, it never looked cheesy or bad.
And so John Huttman and Dominic Watkins are the production designers. And I think they killed it. I think the Egyptian temples look dope. The kind of decrepit abbey.
The scene with all the camel spiders running out, like, at first I was like, oh my God. And then he started shooting and it became like a weird slapstick thing.
Yeah.
At first it was horrific.
Yeah.
And it looked cool.
It looked really good. You talked about the Crusaders' tomb. That looked cool. And even Prodigium, their secret headquarters. I thought it looked cool with like their monster trophy case.
This really feels like a DC comic. Like, it just feels like a DC comic. Marvel would never make this, but like, like we're getting our superhero team together because they have the Frankenstein superhero thing. Like, this feels like something they would do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So in the sound design,
hold on.
Or you got more?
I got Penny Rose is a costume designer. I don't have much to say about the costumes, but Elizabeth Yanni Georgiou was the hair and makeup designer, and I do want to give props to her because the makeup is dope.
Yeah, the mummy looks awesome all the time.
I love all her tattoos. I love when they flash back to ancient Egypt, and she has like that sort of Egyptian eyeliner, and she has like the silver painted toes and fingers, and then like her demonic form, she's got all these cool glyphs tattooed all over her, and creepy double eyes and everything. So I think the hair and makeup was superb.
Yeah, they did a lot of really cool things visually with the characters to keep them visually striking. I will say on that note, like, I don't know, she didn't always feel like a mummy to me because she wasn't always wearing or often wasn't wearing any of the mummification stuff. And she just was kind of like a dusty demon broad.
So I rewatched the 1932 Mummy last night because I just like to remind myself what happened in that movie. And so Karloff's mummy, you only see him in the bandages just at the very beginning of the movie.
Okay.
And then the rest of the movie, he is just sort of like a dusty old man wearing a fez and like one of those sort of like man gowns that guys in the Middle East wear. I don't know what the garment is called, but one of those kind of floor length roby things.
Okay.
And he's got like craggy makeup on his face, but he's only dressed as a mummy right when he comes out of the coffin.
All right. I can see that. If they're giving an homage to that, but I would have liked a little more nod to the fact that she's a mummy.
Yeah. Even, I mean, inexplicably, Nick Morton wears bandages at the end of the movie.
Yeah, for no reason.
For no good reason other than he has mummy powers.
Yeah, and they're like in the prologue part of it, they're like, and they mummified her alive. And it's like, you don't know how mummification works, do you?
That's the exact same. Lisa said the same thing. She's like, well, then they didn't mummify her.
Yeah, because you didn't remove her organs and you didn't drain her body fluids and you didn't pack her with bandages and herbs and whatnot.
It's like, what we mean is they wrapped her up alive and sealed her in a sepulcher.
Yeah, they basically like put her in an Iron Maiden. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah, and then pumped it full of mercury.
Okay, just because she wasn't crazy enough already. Yeah, so I mean,
sound design.
I'm good with that. I mean, I thought that the score was good. It was by Brian Tyler. It felt like it was at times when they were exploring old themes, it was orchestral, and when they were doing more modern things, it was used electronic elements. And I thought that it was well done. It was a journeyman's effort. Like, this was not what I would think is going to like sell the movie, but it certainly was up to the task.
Yeah, that is very close to my assessment of it. 'Cause I liked it. I've listened to it a few times. It's not probably going to make it into like if I came across this on vinyl while I'm looking through soundtracks, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, The Mummy, I love this score. It's just not that kind of thing. It is journeyman effort. That sounds kind of dismissive, but accurate.
No, a journeyman is a competent professional.
Yeah, Brian Tyler is a good composer. He kind of, I described it like he alternates between Elfman-esque creepiness and then soaring heroics. And like, you know, I was listening to the score, and I think really like good scores, when you listen to them, you can kind of see the scenes that the pieces go to.
Yeah.
And it does that. Like, I was like, okay, this is Tom Cruise running in the desert, or this is him flying around in a plane, or whatever. Like, I can tell the scene from the music.
Yeah, and this movie, they use a lot of like sound design where you can tell it was added after the fact, like footsteps, wind sounds, creaking doors, little whispers that you can't quite make out that are just there for creepy factor. And they added all these things in, and they don't jump out at you, but since I'm specifically listening for this and I'm looking for things to note, I noted them, and they sounded right, and they sounded appropriate. I mean, but once you get to a movie that's almost $200 million,
it better sound right.
Yeah. You better have a decent composer. Yeah. You better have decent sound design.
Yeah.
I don't think any of it jumped out at me as like, whoa, that was amazing. Yeah. It was like, this is appropriate for a $200 million movie. There you go.
Yeah. Christopher Scarabosio was the sound designer. He also acquitted himself admirably. You know, he did the job. There was, you talked about all the ADR. It has like one of the longest lists of credited like ADR and Foley artists I've ever seen on a movie. Like a lot of people did little sounds for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I don't have anything really stand out.
And it feels like we're breezing through this, but
it really does, because the movie wasn't. It was not. It wasn't all that or a bag of chips. It was like half a bag of chips. It was with a lot of air.
It was a turkey. We'll just say it. This was a turkey. If it was anything other than a turkey, any sort of more majestic bird, even a cormorant.
That's a nice bird.
Yeah, it would have launched a dark universe of movies.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the stars.
So Sophia Boutella.
We're gonna start with her. Good.
Yeah, she's fine. The best one.
I agree.
I mean, so she's got to go first. She played Amunet, the mummy, and I think that one of the most important parts of her performance was that she did a lot of really excellent physical acting.
Yes,
she didn't talk a ton. She did talk, but her posturing and her movement and the way she would crouch and leap and move. Yeah. She's just an extremely like visceral, physical performer, and it was awesome. She stole the show in the scenes that she was in. Yeah. She pretty much was the focus, and I think that she just was awesome.
100%. I agree with that. I think her dance background really serves her well in this. I really love when she first she first crawls out of the tomb, and she has this really twitchy movement before she starts like draining victims and getting power back. And no one but a dancer really can do that stuff, like that kind of I don't know, body control or whatever
total
it is.
Body control.
Her physical acting is so good, and I was already stoked for Rebel Moon coming out next week.
Yeah.
I'm even more stoked for it now to see her in the lead of a movie.
Yeah, I was looking at her IMDb and I was like, she was in Prisoners of the Ghostland and I never saw that. And we talked about watching that. Mm-hmm. And now that I thought she was such a great performer, I'm going to go watch that movie, I think.
Yeah. We should maybe do a podcast. We would make Cultists, Ted and James, the big Nick Cage enthusiasts. We'd make them very happy.
Oh, I'm a big Cage fan myself, so I think we should do that.
We'll do the Prisoners of Ghostland, definitely. Yeah, Sofia Boutella, she was incredible, and we already said this, but I root for her more than the protagonist of the movie.
Yeah, and kudos for the casting, for casting a lady in her, mid-late 30s to play the lead here. It would have been very Hollywood to choose some, 22-year-old lady or whatever.
I was going to say, good job casting someone that's North African. Because...
Oh yeah, for sure. Like this was just good casting all around.
Yeah, I was like, well, she's Algerian, like that. I mean, that's not
she's
Egyptian,
not Egyptian.
but it's. I mean, actually, that was probably part of the historical Egyptian kingdom, right?
Yeah,
Algeria. I think so.
I think it works.
She's North African, playing a North African character. Boris Karloff wasn't North African, I promise you.
None of the original characters were right.
No, Christopher Lee was not Egyptian. Yeah. Okay. Tom Cruise, Nick Morton. It's a weird thing because on the one hand, Tom Cruise, I call him the American Jackie Chan.
Yeah, pretty much.
Tom Cruise excels at risking his life to entertain us. When they're doing all like the weightless stuff in the plane, I was like, oh, this is all real. They really shot this.
Yeah, I read about that. They did like 64 takes or some annoying
in the vomitorium or whatever they call that plane. And no one does what Tom Cruise does, and he's exceptional at being Tom Cruise.
Yeah, he's a good actor and a great stuntman.
Yeah. I don't think he's the right guy for this movie.
No.
But he is a great Tom Cruise. Like, Tom Cruise is great at being Tom Cruise, and you have to acknowledge it.
He's always got that kind of charismatic swagger and always like a half shitty grin on his face.
Yeah.
I would have rather seen him as a wolf man. Kind of a shitty...
a shitty wolf man?
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is the shitty wolf man.
I would have liked that a lot better.
Yeah. Do you buy his arc? Because that was something Kurtzman talked about, how
he becomes the mummy when he gets Set's soul put into him or whatever.
And he's supposed to be a guy that's sort of on the dark side but has a good heart, and then ultimately has to become a monster in order to fight monsters. Like, that's like...
No, it's bad writing.
It just didn't, it didn't ever work for me. And the other part of it that never worked for me, I guess, is Annabelle Wallis as Jenny Halsey.
Oh, man. I almost wasn't even going to mention her because that half-assed love interest was a terrible add-on.
So that is, again, just like with Dracula. You have to buy into this romance, because if he's willing to put the god of death, which Set is not the god of death if in Egyptian mythology, but according to this story, if he's willing to put the god of death, become the vessel for it, because he loves this woman so much, to have mastery over life and death.
He wants to be able to bring his lady back to life.
Right. You have to buy into this romance, right? Like, there has to be some actual chemistry between them.
The first to say that if you're like, hey, we're going to make you the new living god of death, all you got to do is get stabbed and then you can make anything live or die, I'd be like, yes.
Yes, even. That's why you would not be a good lead for the Mummy, because you just would go over right away without any.
Yeah, I'd be like, fuck yeah, god of death.
God of death. Make me the god of death. That'd be awesome.
Be like, the people who are good and doing the right thing, you live. The people who are shitty, you die.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just avoid me on a bad day.
Exactly.
But you could raise people back.
They're like, hey, god of death, are you hungry? Here's a snack. You've killed like 90 people.
You're like, oh, geez. All right, I'm going to bring those people back and just apologize to all of them and just be like, sorry, low blood sugar.
Okay, now we need to get Jim Carrey to make this version of the movie.
Yeah. So it's my understanding. I've never really watched Peaky Blinders.
Mm-hmm. I watched like the first season, but then it seemed very like I get the
repetitive.
Shtick. Yeah.
So she's on that show, and I gather that people think she's very good on that show.
Okay.
So I infer from that she's probably a very good actor.
I don't even think her performance here was bad.
Yeah.
I just think
the
writing was bad.
Yeah.
She was a good, like when she was mad at him, she seemed really mad, and when she was like trying to forgive him, you could see there was some turmoil. Like, I don't think her performance was bad at all. I just think the character was terrible.
Yeah, and
it was a tack on.
And the two characters don't
no
mesh.
Chemistry.
Yeah, no chemistry with each other.
Yeah, he's like 30 years older than her, and they just don't go.
Russell Crowe says he's a young man.
Yeah.
You're a young man of 63.
Exactly.
Okay.
There was just nothing there. And no shade on Annabelle Wallace. I think she did a fine job, and I hope she got a good paycheck out of it.
And she had no stunt background, and she did some crazy stuff in this movie, too.
Yeah.
Like, because she went up there in the plane with Tom Cruise.
Dang.
And yeah, so she really went for it. I just think it's a nothing of a character, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I guess we talk about Russell Crowe.
Sure.
As Dr. Henry Jekyll. I did not think we needed a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde in The Mummy. This was totally not needed. So I went into
this. He's there to dump exposition.
Yeah.
3 times. He narrates over the prologue, right? He comes in the middle of the movie and derails it. And then he narrates over the epilogue, too.
And so, again, just like Annabelle Wallace, I don't think Russell Crowe did a bad job at all. He's actually a pretty damn good Dr. Jekyll.
I totally agree.
But this does not belong.
We're totally on the same page. And I think their fight together, locking Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe in a room and letting them, like, MMA each other, that's golden.
I'd like to see that in real life.
It's two extremely talented physical actors doing a fight scene that I think that they basically choreographed themselves.
Sure.
And it's awesome. Good. It doesn't fit the movie at all. It kind of...
We don't want... So the reason you know that scene doesn't fit the movie is there's no mummy in that scene.
No.
It's called The Mummy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's like a little mini movie, right? Because there's a MacGuffin in that you have to get his little... quadruple syringe thing that he needs to periodically inject himself with to not turn into Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
So like Tom Cruise has to get the MacGuffin in order to inject him.
Well, there's too many MacGuffins because then there's the dagger and then the gem.
Yeah.
And that you have to combine to make the super dagger thing.
It's a MacGuffin-rich environment.
Yeah, this is just...
It's like a D&D game.
I could write a better D&D adventure than this that would be slimmer, faster, and the players would feel better about it at the end.
You know what it is? It's the sort of video game side quest logic where Nick Morton keeps selecting accept on side quests.
He just can't say no.
Yeah, like he romances the girl and then sees
he's like, sick, I got the companion.
He sees the map to her secret treasure, right? And he's like, accept, go find the secret treasure. And he goes and gets that. It's like, accept, resurrect the mummy. Accept, become the host of Set. Accept, Joan Prodigium. He just keeps accepting quests.
It's insane.
Yeah.
You know, the last actor I thought, and I mentioned him before, was Jake Johnson as Sergeant Vale.
Yeah.
He was some comic relief. Most of the time it landed. Mm-hmm. I would have preferred this be a darker movie with little to no comic relief.
Yeah.
I would have liked a dark ass mummy movie, kind of like when they were going through, like when she was raising the ghouls and they were just, being all gnarly, and just make it like a nasty horror flick.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna include funny stuff, he did a good job.
Yeah, Jake Johnson, he's really good. Lisa said that this is a waste of Jake Johnson because she really likes him, and he doesn't get a ton to do, and he's basically playing Griffin Dunn's character from American Werewolf in London, who is the ghost that explains the curse to you, right? at the end when Tom Cruise resurrects him, Nick Morton brings him back fully to life.
Yeah.
I felt like that was cheap.
It
I would
was.
have kind of rather him be a ghost that
His
comes
ghost
with,
companion. Yeah.
like that would be cooler and more mummy-ish.
Yeah,
right. He's
definitely.
like he's become the god of death, and he's got this ghost that kind of busts his chops, and no one else can see. That's kind of a cool. Like if you're building a franchise, that's sort of a cooler thing than just having a comic relief sidekick.
Yeah, and so like if you're a dungeon master and you're running this adventure and you have the option of giving your player a ghost familiar, you do.
Yeah.
You don't
cool.
just bring back their henchmen. It's cooler to have a ghost buddy.
Yeah, and now I mean, I guess he can just bring back the dead. We know very little about the consequences of bringing people back. Like, anyways, let's not go
and
down
we never will, because this is dead.
It's because this is dead. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Jake Johnson, he's good he's a good guy in a bad movie.
Yeah, I didn't have any more people listed for notable cast members, did you?
No, not really.
I mean, you always list like you're like, as best boy Grip, he did an amazing job.
I do have some names, like Courtney Vance as Colonel Greenway and stuff, but like, they're in and out of the movie and not essential. We've covered the people who I wrote notes about.
All right. So I guess personal
time. We're in the
personal highlights. What was your favorite part?
I'm going to go big with it. It's the series of sequences between the plane crash and the car chase.
Okay.
That is when I was locked in with the movie and kind of thought we were getting somewhere and this was going to be a pretty good movie. Everything from, Tom Cruise wakes up in the morgue and they go to the pub and, the ghost first starts haunting him and dropping information. And then he's tormented by rats and like we have some cool horror stuff. And then simultaneously to that, the mummy is reviving and she's going around collecting her ghouls. And then the two teams are drawn together, right? She exerts her power and draws him to her.
Okay.
And we have like a series of really cool, proper horror sequences in and around the creepy woods and the abbey and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that is the best section.
And until they get into the SUV and start escaping and Prodigium shows up and everything, until it goes into the superhero mode, for about 20 minutes, we have a solid horror movie happening. And I'm for it. Like, I'm so, like, I want that movie blown up, basically. Yeah. That tone, those characters, that movie, without the side stuff.
All right.
What about you?
Nothing. I have nothing.
You have no personal highlight?
I literally have the section blank on my notes because as I was searching my mind last night to finish my notes and review them, I was just like, man, I didn't love anything. But I will in retrospect, after our conversation, I will call out a scene that I thought just looked really cool.
Okay.
Was I really loved when the mummy had raised all of the crusaders and they were there and they go in and there's some fights and stuff, but really I just love the entire mood and vibe of that. I would like a whole movie that's just spooky and crazy about old dead warriors like coming out and just doing evil shit with a mummy. That was cool. I liked all the stuff you were talking about. That Abbey scene was rad. I liked all of that stuff. But if I'm thinking like what part of the movie, like what's my wow moment, I was never wowed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's fair. It's interesting. I don't know if it's just from us doing this so much. We've had basically the same opinion about these three movies.
Yeah,
almost exactly. We're sort of locking in to a common opinion.
Well, at least we're not saying the exact same thing. But sometimes when a dud is a dud, you just call it that. You know.
All right.
I mean, so what worked for you? What were the good things?
I'm gonna do a weird double dip. But I mean, listen that. Before the double dip, let me talk on the first one. Sofia Boutella worked for me. The Mummy's never been my favorite monster. I rewatched the original yesterday. It's just Dracula with an Egyptian veneer put over the top of it. It's almost the exact same story.
Yeah, it's worse Dracula.
It's worse Dracula, yeah. The Mummy's near the bottom of my list of monsters. This Mummy, I fucks with.
It's probably the best Mummy.
Yeah, I think Sofia Boutella is incredible in this, and she does the kind of the perfect vibe of a universal monster, which is you have sympathy, empathy for her, but she's still a monster. Like, she's still scary, she's still horrific, she's still evil, but she's understandable, and you empathize with her.
So since we're tangenting, because we have lots of we have a lot of time.
Yeah.
What are the core? If you're gonna say these are the universal monsters, and you're just listing them off, what are they?
Do you want all of them?
No, like the important ones, the ones that matter. Like we got, of course, Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Mummy,
Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Invisible Man, Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Ooh, he counts.
I know, because in those days we called people with disabilities monsters.
That's not right.
It was a different time and people were awful.
We're not reviewing that one.
Yeah. God, who else? Who are we forgetting?
Well, I mean, that's, if you forgot them, that means they weren't major. So I was just curious. So I knew them. There wasn't any, like, because if you had asked me before we started doing this Universal stuff, I just would have said like Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, and
that's the Trinity.
Yeah,
right there.
And I would have just racked my mind. I would have come up with Creature from the Black
Lagoon. Bride
of
Frankenstein is a distinct monster, but she's sort of ancillary to Frankenstein's monster.
Okay, so that's. Yeah, the Mummy, who's now a she in my mind.
Yeah,
is the 5th out of 5.
Yeah,
although we haven't had like a modern, convincing remake of Creature from the Black Lagoon, have we?
I would say Guillermo del Toro's Academy Award-winning The Shape of Water is the modern Creature from the Black Lagoon.
I haven't seen that.
Oh. That's a good movie.
I mean, it seems, that's... Yeah. But I definitely, I think it's obvious that I would put Dracula, then Wolfman, then Frankenstein in my rankings.
Yeah. But... Yeah, I mean, at various times, Frankenstein, the Creature, and the Wolfman have all been my favorite. They've all kind of jostled around for that number one spot. But those are my 3. And then... Dracula and the Mummy are that next tier, because they're basically the same guy. They're the same character.
But now in the modern day, Dracula is Nick Cage and the Mummy is Sofia Boutella.
Yeah, I'm aboard with that. Those are good versions of them for sure.
He's hella evil in that movie, Renfield. He is an evil Dracula.
That is such an over the top cagey performance.
Yeah.
And it's like this excellent combination of Lugosi and Lee, like the best of both of them, and then cranked to 11.
Yeah, it's a caricature of the classic. Anyway, I cut you off. What else worked for you?
Ben Saracen's cinematography. I think the movie looks great. I really like how he gets the vibe, and it actually feels like a gothic horror movie, at least in the way it's lit and the way it's shot. And then finally, Tom Cruise, man of action.
Dang.
He's the best at risking his body to entertain the masses. And I appreciate him for doing that. I appreciate it for him for putting himself into harm's way, throwing himself through windows, going in crashing planes, doing this sort of stuff for the sake of entertainment. He's the best at it.
All right.
What worked for you?
So I'm going to give it 1 real compliment and 2 non-compliments.
Okay.
1 real compliment. Sofia Boutella was amazing and redefined the character in my mind. I thought that the casting, the makeup, the tattooing, the way they did her eyes, the storyline with that character, I thought that this mythology of the Mummy was excellent. And her performance was excellent.
We haven't actually talked about how they rework this instead of the male mummy, who was like a guy that did sacrilege and got entombed or whatever.
Yeah.
Where she was set to be the first female pharaoh, and then her dad had a late in the game baby boy, and she was displaced.
So she went nuts with power and started murdering.
Yeah. It's kind of understandable. Like,
Sure.
It's definitely something that happens. It's very Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was legitimate. Okay, so now some non-compliments.
Okay.
The premise of this movie is cool.
Okay.
I like the idea of this modern mummy. I like the idea of a spooky, action-oriented Indiana Jones type movie with a horrific monster who I hopefully would win. I like the idea of the monster winning. I don't know. I just think that's cooler. And so the premise and the idea that I had in my mind that this movie was going to be, and I would even say the promise that they made in the prologue was really cool. Yeah. And I was on board. Like when I watched the first, 10 minutes of the movie, I was like, okay, this is going to be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know why people are hating on this movie because this looks fucking cool.
I've done that so many times when a movie starts strong and we're like, wait, this movie rules. Why do people hate this?
Exactly. And then the next one, I want the dark universe. Like this seemed fine. Like they added in like at least 30 minutes to facilitate dark universe happening. Had they removed it, it would have been a better standalone movie.
Yeah.
But having the Jekyll situation in there and having the new globe trotting mummy who's fighting crime for good or whatever the hell he's doing.
Yeah, he became a monster to fight monsters.
Yes, exactly. So that could have been cool. I mean, I would have accepted this as the first one, being like, well, they had a cooler mummy and then they downgraded their mummy, but whatever. And then there's another one and I'm like, okay, cool. Now we get the Avengers where we get like all the monsters and they got to fight God or something.
They fight Charles Dance as the master vampire.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I'm so on board with that.
And and so this would have been cool. It's sad that they took that away from us.
If you think about, because we like the first Iron Man movie. The thing is, Nick Fury doesn't show up until the stinger at the very end. He never shows up in the middle of the movie and he says, you're entering a new world of gods and superheroes,
and
dude.
You're on a team now, bro.
Yeah, like there's never that. Like he doesn't sideline it. They let the entire Iron Man movie play out and then he comes in and gives him the speech about the bigger universe. That's the better way to do it. Let the mummy be the mummy and then have Dr. Jekyll come in and be like, so are you ready for the world of God and monsters? Like do that then.
That would have been much cooler.
Yeah.
All right. So what didn't work for you?
Here's my double dip. What worked now becomes what didn't work. Tom Cruise, again, he's back on the list. He's a great man of action, but his movie star need to shape the movie around himself destroyed the movie. It completely, he made himself the core of the film, and the plot was lost because of it. And so, I mean, I hate to say it, but he ruined the movie. The corporate agenda. They're jamming the dark universe down our throat, and it needs to be built organically. I have tattoos of like a bunch of the Universal monsters. I am your target audience. I'm in the bag. I want to like this. You have to actively fuck it up for me to not like it. And they did. They actively fucked it up. And so, like, I'm starting out like when we play the Game of Thrones game and it's an intrigue and I'm favorable towards you. Like, I'm like, yeah, give me more Universal monsters. And they're fucking up the roles. Just not succeeding. So Universal Studios dropped the ball. Tom Cruise messed it up. Overall, again, I just call it too many cooks. There are 3 agendas competing and the movie just can't work with three masters.
Totally agree on all of those fronts.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, I could just echo what you said, but I got a few specific things.
Oh, good.
There isn't internal consistency in the character motivations. They're not believable people.
Right.
Nick Morton is completely irrational. He is not internally consistent. He could not exist in the real world. This character is just stage scene after stage scene after stage scene. He could not be real. This person could not happen. He makes weird, stupid decisions, and he gets framed up in these weird scenes just so he can do something else spectacular and give another wisecracking moment. So it's all just like, it's like cut scene after cut scene to Nick Morton doing something crazy and being cool, and it's just like totally, it's unbelievable. And I'm completely willing to suspend disbelief for a fantasy movie, but even in a fantasy, the character motivation has to be consistent in order for you to believe the story could be a thing, even in these weird rules of this universe.
So something that made me think of, I heard this interview with Kurtzman where he was talking about, well, they were filming this movie. He would call out Tom Cruise characters to Tom Cruise, like sort of which Tom Cruise character to be in the moment. Right? He'd be like Jerry Maguire or Ethan Hunt or the guy from Rain Man, who I'm spacing on his name. Like he would call out which one he needed to be in any given scene, which is just, that gets down to what you're describing, right? Where this character is inconsistent because it's a greatest hits of Tom Cruise. It's not a unified character.
It would be like a greatest hits album where they only put weird deep cuts and like drum solos. It's not greatest hits. Okay, so the next one is in that line of thinking. Action sequence after action sequence that didn't further the plot at all, and in fact were just not even interesting. Like, I thought at first it was kind of cool when they were in the plane and like he gave her the only parachute and she went whatever, and then later he ruined the authenticity of the moment by saying, I thought there was another. That's fuck off, dude.
That's one of the
so
jokes.
Even if you're a dude who thought there was another and you gave it to her and she's like, you gave me the only parachute, I love you.
Yeah.
You just silently say, fuck, man, saved by fate there, because I guess I'm going to take the win on this one.
Yeah.
You don't tell her.
I accidentally gave her the only parachute, and I'm unkillable due to a curse.
Yeah, it's just lame. And then the driving scene that he drove in a circle and nothing happened. And it's like, oh no, I came back to when I started. It's like, okay, yeah, you just wasted like 3 minutes of our time while you drove in a fucking circle. It was a stupid action sequence. It wasn't entertaining. It wasn't good. Like, I've seen so many better driving scenes. Go watch Ronin. Like, that ain't shit. Yeah. That was a stupid scene. And they should have just deleted that. Cut it.
I think, because I saw an interview with Tom Cruise where the plane crash was his idea, right? He's like, I've had an idea for a zero gravity sequence for a long time, and this was the place to use it. And so like there is this sense that we're getting the stuff they haven't been able to squeeze into Mission Impossible.
I don't watch Tom Cruise movies just kind of in general. I don't boycott him or whatever, but he never makes something I'm interested in. Yeah. Like, I can't think of the last movie he made that I wanted to see. This might
Interview
have been
with the Vampire.
Yeah, that was it, actually, probably. I mean, he was good in Top Gun, the first one. He was good in just like his real early stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like movies that are Tom Cruise movies because his acting and that wisecracking action guy is not at all interesting to me. So the other thing that didn't work for me while I get back on it, what the fuck is this movie? Is this a zombie movie or a vampire movie? What the fuck is the mummy doing? Is she raising
sort of in between zombie and vampire?
Is she raising zombies? Is that what they are? We were calling them ghouls, but what do you mean by ghoul? That can mean different things. And different ghouls are flesh eaters historically, and in vampire mythology, they're blood drinkers. Who are like subordinate slaves to vampires. So is this a fucking vampire movie or a zombie movie? She shouldn't have minions. She should just be the mummy. Like, I did not like all of this. Either lean into it, like these are risen souls because she has the power over life and death.
Okay.
Or don't. Because if she has the power over life and death, why are any of her enemies alive?
That's true.
It's just, what the fuck is this movie? It doesn't make any sense. It's like this is a dollar store vampire.
What can mummies do in D&D? What are the D&D rules?
They can do like plagues of locusts and
okay, so that's the spiders. Like she can do that,
and they're like super strong, and they
can't summon undead.
Enervate you. No, I don't think so. I don't know. It's been a while since I used a mummy in a plot.
They can't, because that's the spell she's using, right? It's summon undead.
I mean, I could look it up, but from just a general idea of the like monster movie premise, she doesn't seem to have defined roles or power. She wasn't like shooting sandstorms at people or anything.
Oh, she does. No, she does control sand.
She should have done more of that.
She did more sand.
But basically, I think that this had a monster identity crisis. She was more like super evil lady with a grab bag of powers that was miscellaneously useful for various scenes that they wanted to shoot, as opposed to these are traditionally things associated with the mummy, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think she can raise undead, but not bring people back to life. I think that's the limit of her power from what we see demonstrated.
Yeah, I just did not like the identity crisis of this movie. I liked the character, but they needed more definite. They needed more rules.
Understand the mummy more
in a magic system, and this is a magic system. However, the Universal horror film flicks, a magic system has to be internally consistent. A vampire needs to be burned by the sun. A stake has to have an effect. In most classical mythologies, silver matters in some way. You can kill them by taking their head off. You have to have all of these standard tropes, but they never defined any of these tropes for the mummy, because it was really just kind of it was an afterthought in the Universal monster flicks. I don't know. It just was a situation where I feel like there was no true identity for this character. She was just this weird sort of undead lady who wasn't actually dead because they mummified her alive, but she can't die. I don't know. I just think that it was bad.
So I pulled up Mummy Lord from Roll20 just to kind of look at what Mummy Lords can do. They have magic resistance. Rejuvenation. They can gain a new body every 24 hours as long as their heart is intact.
All right. A canoptic jar typically is where the heart goes.
Yeah. Spellcasting. The Mummy Lord is a 10th level spellcaster, and its spellcasting ability is wisdom, blah, blah, blah. And they have cleric spells.
So, I mean, clerics can technically raise the dead with make zombies, like animate dead.
Animate dead, dispel magic.
But still, she wasn't casting spells. That wasn't a spell casting mummy.
Yeah, it was. She was casting animate dead, and she cast whirlwind of sand, channel negative energy. She might have even used a little blasphemous word. I think maybe she was a mummy lord.
Okay, I guess I'm totally wrong. There's no identity crisis here. No, this was not good mythology. It wasn't. It wasn't defined.
Poorly defined.
If they want to define it, they already gave us a bunch of voiceover mansplaining. Just give us a little more.
Yeah, have Dr. J. These are the. A mummy lord has the following abilities.
They are challenge rating 12.
She's a level 10 spellcaster. So watch out, Nick Morton.
So yeah, if you agree with me, Cultists, go ahead and just comment on the YouTube video or whatever, because this was not properly defined. Or if you think Nick is right and they did a proper D&D mummy lord, you can vote for him, and we'll see how we go here. So what is your final thoughts and rating?
My final thoughts, I just wrote RIP Dark Universe and 2 stars.
All right.
I was not unentertained by this movie, but it's not a good movie and it's not a recommend.
Yeah, so I have an interesting conundrum here because I think it's a strong 1 or a weak 2, because the thing is it really, like many things, it depends on the audience. If you're a dummy, you're gonna really like this movie.
Yeah.
If you've watched every Avengers movie and couldn't find a flaw in any of them, then you're gonna love this shit. Because this is like that nonsense. But if you gave up on that stuff long ago after the good ones had passed, and you're just like, wow, this is drivel, you're going to hate this movie because it's drivel. So I don't know. I think I'm just going to give it a 1. I would not recommend anyone watch this.
So that basically
strong 1 though. I just want that on the record.
It's a strong one. So that really does. I was going to say we should rank these 3 movies, but it is clear we watched them in descending order.
Oh, yeah. Oh God.
Wolfman was the best one. Dracula second best. The Mummy the worst. Although the Mummy herself was badass.
Yeah, the Mummy herself was great, but the movie was not.
It was bad.
It was 2 hours wasted.
You're like, what do you think of the Mummy? Do you mean the Mummy or the movie The Mummy?
Yeah, you're like,
I love the Mummy. That movie sucked.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just delete the whole Tom Cruise section out of it, and
who would you cast? Who's your Nick Morton that won't hijack the movie?
I mean, I jokingly said John Cena. He would have done a better job, but I actually would have tried to. If I was remaking this, I would have made him way less of an action character and way more of an intellectual, and make this movie like a creeping, maybe like a slasher style movie where she's chasing him, kind of Terminator-ish.
What if let's spitball? Let's make a better Mummy here, real quick. What if instead of a treasonous soldier who should be court-martialed, what if he's an unethical archaeologist?
Yeah, just an academic who is crossing the line because his grant proposals fail and he needs to continue to fund the research, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you could make it sympathetic in a way.
Yeah, but he's doing things he shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, for sure. Important. He has to cross the line. And I could see... who was the scientist in that Godzilla movie where he was like explaining everything? Skarsgård.
Alexander Skarsgård.
Let's give Alexander Skarsgård a role.
Okay, I like this movie. I like Alexander Skarsgård, Nick Morton, unethical archaeologist, but with a good heart.
Yeah, he's doing it for the right reasons, but he's doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, but he screwed over Jenny to get the map from her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we keep that. Maybe do we keep the plane crash, but not the car chase?
Yeah, she's a rival academic who knows his plights and is going to swoop in on his dig sites. And so he doesn't feel bad about taking the map from her.
Yeah.
But she doesn't hate the guy. She just thinks he's not qualified and his institution shouldn't be running this.
Yeah, he's doing things the wrong way.
Yeah.
He's trying to do things for personal gain and not for the science.
Yeah, this would be a much more interesting movie, and you'd believe the love plot.
Yeah, because it's Alexander Skarsgård, and he's age appropriate and like a 7-foot tall Swede.
He's a better looking guy. Let's be real.
Yeah, that's not the short shame, Tom Cruise.
No,
we love our short kings. All right, should we take a break and come back with the Vault of Darkness? Before we delve into the Vault of Darkness, we ask that all initiates of the cult follow us on your favorite social media platforms at Nightshade Cult.
If you've enjoyed this content, help us grow the cult by sharing it with like-minded people and leave us a review wherever you listen.
All right. What are you pulling out of the vault for us today?
All right, so I was trying to think of what would be the most relevant, and I was thinking, what are my favorite immortal beings that are not vampires? Because I can't go there.
I was going to say... Are you doing another vampire thing?
That are not vampires. How about Santa Claus?
Okay.
It's seasonal. This is December episode. I watched a new Santa movie last Christmas that I'm gonna watch again, and I'm gonna watch it every year.
Okay.
It's called Violent Night. Have you seen it?
Is this the one with David Harbour?
Yes.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
This is the best Christmas movie I've ever seen.
Okay.
Sell me
on this.
So Violent Night is a hyper-violent monster in the house slasher movie.
With Santa
where
as the
Santa
slasher.
is the slasher, but it adds in a Home Alone element where there's a kid character that he's trying to save from the people who have come to kidnap and extort the rich family.
Okay.
And so this is, and when he's talking to her, he reveals he's a Viking warrior named Nicomund the Red, and he takes off his jacket and he's got tattoos like mine all over the place. And this is like Die Hard meets Home Alone meets 13th Warrior.
Okay, that's a good pitch.
The hero is amazing. The villains are villainous. You want them to lose.
Yeah.
And overall, this is my favorite Christmas movie. And it came out last year, and it was super successful. Like they sold a ton of these.
Yeah.
And so they immediately greenlit a second one with the same cast, etc. Yeah. And of course, the strikes delayed it. So
we didn't get it in time for this.
No, Christmas. It's being worked on now. Currently, and hopefully we'll have it for 2025. So I definitely recommend that everyone check out Violent Night. You will, if you like Home Alone or 13th Warrior or Die Hard and would like to see what it would be like if all of them were combined and Santa Claus was a Viking warrior sledgehammer wielder who's killing bad guys in the confines of a crazy mansion, you would like this movie.
Okay. I like what you've sold it better than most of the stuff I've seen on it. I love David Harbour.
Yeah, so and he's awesome in the role. Yeah. Like he kills it. And lots of bad guys.
And lots of bad guys. 13th Warrior, is that in scope of our podcast? Is it horror enough?
Oh, I mean, it is kind of a horror movie. It's a fantasy horror. I would watch it. I would do it. I love that movie.
Okay.
It's one of my faves. It's in that pantheon. Probably in my top 10.
I like that movie quite a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
13th Warrior is in scope.
I used to be very much like Die Hard is the Christmas movie I watch every year just because you got to watch something. Yeah. Now it's Violent Night.
It's Violent Night.
And it's properly a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
It's Santa Claus is the star.
Okay. I'm on board. I will watch Violent Night before we come back for our January 1st episode.
Awesome. You have to tell me what you think.
Okay.
So what are you into right now?
I'm pulling out of the Vault of Darkness. I was really kind of similarly racking my brain for
what's mummy related.
Yeah, and I kind of was like, how far can I stretch it out of scope in order to get a mummy tie-in? And I just wasn't really sure. And then I started reading the new volume of The Incredible Hulk, subtitled The Age of Monsters by Philip Kennedy Johnson and artist Nick Klein. And in the very first pages of issue 1 of the new series, we've got people down in an ancient crypt opening a sarcophagus that's got an evil curse on it. And I was like, this is mummy shit. So it works.
Nice.
So on our old podcast, the one with the shadow band name, I had talked about Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk. And in between that run, which was really a great supernatural horror and character defining epic run on the character, there was a silly run in between that was less popular and undid a lot of the things that seemed like they had been done in the earlier Superior run. This is a return. We are going back into the age, or the age of monsters has begun, is what they're saying. And they're taking the Hulk back into the horror tone that was established by the Immortal Hulk run. And not to give too much away from it, but basically, in reaction to the interstitial run that happened in between, where Banner exerted control over the body, the Hulk wants revenge on Banner and wants permanent control of the body. And alongside of that, there is a supernatural thing that's happening that's causing all these sort of eldritch, Lovecraftian sort of horrors to come into the world.
Nice.
And so you have... it's a very dark horror-themed Hulk series, and the first collection is just either has just come out or is coming out soon.
That was my question. How does the layman read this? Because I'm not going episode by episode, issue by issue.
So I've been buying them. So I have all the individual issues, but I've been reading them on Marvel Unlimited because it's just more convenient for me to read on my phone.
Oh man, they're putting themselves out of business.
Basically, yeah. But that first collection of the first 5 issues plus the annual is, like I said, is out now. And if you buy that, you're 2 issues ahead of me because I'm only up to issue 3. But I really had to power through the run that preceded this one, and I didn't enjoy it. And I'm happy to get back into the Age of Monsters.
Not to get too into comics because comics are for nerds.
Unlike D&D.
Unlike
and all the cool stuff you like, all your little models. And...
Yeah. No, I do like comics. I feel like one of the things that's really hard for a person like me is that I don't want a bunch of physical media. I also don't want another monthly subscription that I feel obligated to because like subscription models, it's kind of like the gym, right? You pay for the gym so you feel like you have to go or you're wasting your money.
Right.
And there's a certain amount of like, I don't know, it builds up a little bit of negativity on my mind if I don't use the subscription, but I keep paying for it. That's why I like Audible so much because it just racks up credits and you can just dump them when you want to. How can you read this stuff in a way that isn't a subscription?
Amazon, Comixology.
Okay, so it's on Comixology, and everybody has Prime. I'm just going to assume you're all consumer zombies like me.
Yeah, so you can get...
So this is Incredible Hulk Volume 1, Age of Monsters, available January 16th.
There you go.
All right.
And so sometimes with that stuff, if you're willing to wait a little while, especially volume 1s of series will become free for you through Prime.
Oh, okay.
Because they love to get you hooked on these things. So I would say February, March, you might find that as just something included in your subscription. Not to talk you out of giving them money, because I think you want to support when things are good. So it is important to buy things. But
I'm not all about trying to not pay creators. I do buy the things that I'm interested in. I'm just not interested in subscribing to the things I'm interested in. Yeah. That's why I like Bandcamp so much. I can just be like,
go direct.
I buy this from you. You get some cash. I now own it.
Yeah. While we're talking, I wonder if Volume 1 of Immortal Hulk isn't free for Prime members.
Oh, is Immortal Hulk the other good run?
Yeah, that's the other one. From now, it's from probably around the time of the Mummy movie is when that came out, 2017, I would guess.
Yeah, it looks like it's free on Comixology.
Yeah, so I would start with that right now and see if you like that sort of horror Hulk. And then, in the future, once you've read all of the great volumes of Immortal Hulk, you can get into Age of Monsters.
All right. That's a I keep wanting to on-ramp with all these things, but then I just buy so many audiobooks when they go on like Black Friday sale.
Yeah, I got a few too.
Yeah. We'd like to thank you for joining the Nightshade Cult.
Until we meet again, we're wishing you unpleasant dreams.